Hello, and welcome to another episode of One of Us Knows What They Are Talking About, and the other one is you. And we all are reeling this week from the weather events that have inflicted our area this week in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was asked this weekend, is Plano considered part of the Metroplex? And I don't know, have any of you heard of Metroplex? Because that was something that we called it in the 90s, but I don't know that I've heard it called the Metroplex in quite some time. Have you heard
Yeah.
it? Heard
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Do
It's
people
pretty
still call
normal.
it that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually with
Is there-
people, I think.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
And you know
there's
how much
there was a
Sam loves the weather.
Yeah.
there was a country radio station, K-Plex. Does that still exist? Because their motto was "Flex your plex," and then like they talked about the Metroplex. Anyway, so we are all working from home so far this week because while our respective homes either did not go without power or quickly had power restored, our office building is without power. So that's fun.
Woo.
Dealing with all of that. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to discuss emergency preparedness, or being prepared for an emergency, or how to prepare for an emergency, or those type of things. So as you know, dear listeners, we often try to start relevant, and then we just fall apart. So the relevant part is, of course, one of the best ways to plan for an emergency is having your estate planning in place, because you never know when you're going to need it, just that you will, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Are you all thrown off? Because, I'm used to doing this from home, but you all are used to doing this at the office.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, it feels weird.
Is it weird?
I think I've also done a lot more meetings, like virtual meetings from home, as opposed to Sam and Sarah, maybe. Just like when in the early days of us doing HTM, we would do was it 7 a.m. calls with Jessica?
There's no way. Maybe 8.
Was it 8? I just
I couldn't have
remember
done
it was really early. But I think I'm just so used to doing calls from home that I'm like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest reasons that 70+% of people don't have a will, a trust, or any sort of estate plan is just putting it off. They'll get around to it. And so this is a good opportunity to talk about how that's not a really good plan. Just like you can't get homeowners insurance in the middle of a hailstorm or a tornado, you really can't plan for a loss when you're in the middle of one. And so that leads to a lot of unintended results. Does anybody else hear how loud it is on Cynthia's end?
I can hear her typing.
Like the typing, and then like even when like you're picking up your drink and like setting it down.
This is a really sensitive mic.
Apparently. So I'm just making you aware of that. Now that you're not literally constricted by a serpent, then you might want to mute and unmute as needed. I really hope you save that part, Sarah, about being constricted.
It's a ball python.
Same difference.
That was terrifying. Anyway, back on track. So yes, I think one of the biggest things that we're challenged with is people getting around to this and getting it done. And it's, look, we know it's not fun. It's not what you want to spend money on. But we equate it a lot to things like homeowners insurance, where it is insurance and it might be something that you have to change and update, but you can't plan when you're going to have an emergency. You can only plan for having an emergency. So whether it's a medical power of attorney who can make emergency medical decisions for you, whether it's a directive to physicians stating whether you would or would not want your life artificially prolonged if you were in an irreversible or vegetative state. And then, of course, as far as who would take care of kids if something happened to you, how would money and assets be distributed, all of this stuff that just becomes a mess. And did anybody want to chime in on that? I know you're just chomping at the bit. No?
Everything sounds good.
Great. You just want to get to your list, right?
Always.
Of preparing for an emergency. Another part of it, though, is we really try to take a practical approach too, because it's not just having the planning in place and having it done the right way and keeping it up to date, but it's the literal, where do you keep it? And I think, Cyntia, you had some thoughts on this that you wanted to share, I believe.
Yes. Listen, I know how much people are like, oh, take it to the bank, safe deposit box. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Let me paint a word picture here for you. Hold on.
Okay,
like I will tell
Run
you
with it.
The conditions under which you could, but predominantly you really shouldn't. Because let's say, for example, something happens to me and my spouse at the same time. Our documents are all in at the bank. They are locked away nice and safe. Well, we at this point in time only have a wills. And so in order for somebody to gain access to our assets, to our things that we have in the bank, they have to probate the wills. Now, Sarah, where did I say our wills were?
In the bank.
Okay, great. So in order to get access to those, we have to probate. Sam, we've discussed this. In order to probate, what do we need to have?
Oh, no. What, like
the will?
Passive?
No, the physical will.
You don't need to. You don't need a will to probate.
I just want to take this opportunity. No, I have to ask Sam. Sam, if we're having a consultation with someone about probate,
oh my God.
What do we need to have?
Well,
a will? Okay, but everybody understands the Schrodinger's cat situation that we have there. We need the will in order to gain access to the assets. The assets are in the bank. The bank is not going to give you the will to probate if you don't have something saying you can get into it. So if it's just one of those things that's just you and your spouse, can you please, for the love of God, put somebody else as like a signer, or that has a co-ownership or rights of survivorship or something to that safe deposit box? Because if not,
we need. They get frozen when you die, not like literally, like Elsa doesn't come in or anything, but from a figurative standpoint, they freeze them, meaning no one can get into them. And if the very document you need to have authority to get into them is in there, it makes it challenging. Now, of course, there's filings and there's emergency procedures and everything, but the whole point when people are getting a will or trust or something put in place is to try and make things as easy and as straightforward and as efficient as possible. So these are all things that don't accomplish that. The other thing is, I don't know, Cyntia, if you remember the client that we had during COVID who needed to get access to her will to review it, and she couldn't because her bank was just closed indefinitely.
And like,
now imagine,
that was a really difficult time for so many of our clients.
Well, yeah. And so for people who passed during that time and they kept their original will in their safety deposit box and the bank is closed, because don't give a bank any sort of temptation to close. They'll do it. They'll do it. And so, yeah, that's been a challenge. The other thing is just bank hours. So you don't know that you're always going to be able to get access to it. Some of the more emergency-based documents, maybe a will is not as big of an emergency. It can wait a day or two, perhaps, to get access to it, because it's not like you're immediately going to run to the court and the court's going to do something with it. I hope
Yeah.
I'm not bursting anybody's bubble, but that's not how it works. But like a medical power of attorney,
Yes,
right?
that was
So
the next thing.
it's a Saturday night and you're in an accident and someone needs the medical power of attorney and you have it at the bank in the safety deposit box. So lots of downsides. I mean, there are people who really love it and prefer it. And so to Cynthia's point, for people who like to do that, we do, recommend at least talk to the bank. They all have their own rules about putting people's names on it to gain access to it and that type of thing. But that's a big problem. So it kind of begs the question, if we don't generally think that's a good place, where is a good place?
So
I'm going to
typically,
open this up.
Do Sarah and Sam have to contribute, or do you want me to keep going?
I mean, you can keep going.
Contribute is probably too strong of a word for what they do.
I will just keep going.
I mean, I have an answer.
She has an answer. I would call them more offering.
Well, she said answer. So what's your answer?
Leave it alone. Well, I mean, if you have like a fireproof safe, that's a good place to put it. We also at signings, if you take a picture with Piggy, our mascot, you get a little fireproof bag that's also waterproof. So you can also put them in there. We've had older clients put them in the freezer. We don't really recommend that, but it works typically.
Now,
so.
why do you think, do you know the answer to this? Because that's not the most uncommon thing in the world.
Yeah.
Why do you think people do that?
Because when there's a fire, it doesn't get in there,
it's
right?
very insulated. Yeah. So whenever I used to do the signings instead of Sam, I would typically tell our clients, ensure that you put these in a fire resistant vessel, whether it be like a small lockbox, whether it be a safe. Preferably keep it at home, and make sure that your executor or your named agents know where to find it. They know where it is. They know how to get into the home, how to get into if there's like a key to it, they have a copy, or they know where a copy is. If they have a combination, make sure they know where the combination is. Like, this happened maybe last year. I was driving home from the office. It was actually about this time of year. We were under a tornado warning, and Lorie's like, okay, everybody go home. So I was driving home on 75, and I was close to the SMU campus, and I was listening to the radio. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, we just saw a tornado touchdown in Love Field. If you're familiar with Dallas, that's not very far from where I was. I was sitting there in my car like, do I just pull over under this bridge and hope for the best? Do I call Luke and remind him where our documents are? Like, it was to that point. If you've ever been in your car during like a tornado touchdown not too far from you, you're like, all these things just start going through your head. Luckily, my husband was at home with our pets, and he knew where everything is. So it's not like I had to call him and say that, but that's a really big, important thing. It's like, you don't think about it until you're right there and you're like, oh no, does everybody know what needs to happen? Is everybody okay?
Yeah, no, so not a tornado, but a near-death experience I had not too long ago is out in an area called Canton, for those familiar with the North Texas area. There is this cute little place called Yesterland Farms. And if you have kids or just are young at heart, I suggest you go there. They have a lot, there's food and games and crafts, and they have corn mazes for Halloween. They have Easter, like Easter egg hunts for Easter, Christmas. There's like sleigh rides and just tons of stuff. But they have all these old timey roller coasters and a carousel and all of these things. So my 5-year-old, she was finally tall enough to ride this one roller coaster. Now, what's fascinating about this roller coaster is that the outside of it has a Jurassic Park theme, so it's dinosaurs, but the actual roller coaster is a dragon.
Yeah.
I just want you
Yeah.
to sit with that for a
Makes
second.
sense.
People really need to get their, lore straight.
Completely interchangeable, frankly.
Truly.
Dragons
Yeah.
and dinosaurs. Anyway, so as some people know, we have 5 million kids. Well, actually, just 5. So we were with Adley, the 5-year-old, Kaya, the 14-year-old, Carly, the 19-year-old, and then Kimberly had Poppy, the newly minted 2-year-old, but she was too young to get on there. So Kimberly's standing outside of the roller coaster with Poppy, and then the 4 of us are in line, and it was a really long line, and it never is. And I started noticing that they aren't filling the roller coaster. They're only doing it like half. And so they're rolling it, we're waiting, and we're like wondering what the heck is going on. And as we get close, I'm like, I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to ask. So when it's our turn, I said, so, hey, why aren't you filling it? And they're like, yeah, it's not really working well. It's not working the right way. So we're just not putting everybody on. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I immediately text Kimberly and reminded her where I keep my will and my estate documents. And I see her while we're going up the first, and I see her looking at her phone and looking at me like freaked out. I'm just like, well, but as everyone can tell, I survived. I mean, the kids didn't, but no, I survived. Everybody survived. But the point was, that was the first thing. Oh, another really great, this is a good one too, because if you ever want to know how twisted your mind gets when you do estate planning and probate, a couple years ago, I was speaking to a women's group in Florida, and I had driven myself to the airport. You'll have to ask Kimberly why the heck she didn't give me a ride. But anyway, I'd driven to the airport. I was parked there, and there was bad weather in Dallas. Now, I've grown up flying. I don't get scared on flights and turbulence and all of that. But it was pretty intense. I'm scrolling Facebook, and everybody in Dallas is like, oh, how terrible the weather is here and everything. And so surely they're going to like delay this flight or something, but they're not. Like, we're going to get on it. And so I thought, you know what would really suck is if this plane goes down, Kimberly trying to figure out where my car is. So I text her, I'm like, hey, so just in case I don't make it, my car's parked in terminal, blah, 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 spot, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, what is wrong with you?
It's practical. It's where, I'm just letting you know where things are. Right.
So those are the instances that come to mind, which actually leads to something that I am very passionate about. And that is something that we started at Burch Law a couple years ago called the CYA plan. What's it stand for, Sarah?
Cover your assets.
Woo! Very well done. Yes. And part of what we offer as extended services to clients that we really want to get them thinking is exactly what we're talking about. Because as we said not too long ago, having a will, trust, powers of attorney, like having that all in place, that is awesome. Like, you are ahead of 70% of people out there. However, the question that we usually pose to people, and it's kind of a downer, but you have to understand that with the nature of what we do, is, if you died today, would your family know where to start and when they know what to do? And the answer, even with the people that have the best estate plans, obviously from Burch Law, but other, not as equally good, but still good firms, right? There is no equal, is that the answer is no. And so one of the tools that we provide, we used to call it the will memorandum, but when we created the CYA plan, we changed the name to the CYA organizer. Cover your what, Sarah?
Assets. Or
Correct.
should it be assets?
Cover your assets. I don't know.
Cover your
Sam,
assets?
want to chime in? Cover
your version.
Assets.
Yeah. This is the first part you have to emphasize, right?
It's the first part you have to emphasize.
How do you say it, Sam?
Cover your assets?
See, now that sounds like you just said asses. Enunciation, cover your assets.
Whenever I was in high school and I did band, we had the asphalt field and the grass field. One of our coaches really loved to say, our band directors, go to the asphalt field. And we're like, okay, Javi, it's fine.
I mean, in school, that's pretty high level humor right there.
Well, this was a director, like an adult.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there it is.
Listen.
Yeah. Anywho, so the CY organizer, formerly known as the Will Memorandum, and there's nothing magic about the one that we have, but it's really just a bunch of information that we try to encourage people to put together as a resource, because it goes from everything from usernames, passwords, people to contact, where do you keep important paperwork. I have even created, I call it a cheat sheet, like the front page where it's the immediate stuff. What is your phone lock screen? What is your computer code? What's your alarm code? What are your gate combinations at your home? All these things that you're trying to think through. And then at the same time, for people who have pets, I guess technically are plants, but Cyntia has no problem letting plants die. But if you at least have
it was
pets,
already dying. I felt like we were prolonging the suffering, let's be honest. Luke is great with kids and plants.
Okay. So, but if you have something living in your home and perhaps your designated people aren't close, then we also try to encourage people to think about securing somebody, whether it's a neighbor or a friend, that can have more instant access to your place to make sure that they can take care of said living things. So there's a lot of things we try to go through to be thinking about those things. And so, just having the legal paperwork, unfortunately, is not enough. There's also thinking about if something happens, what are all the things they're going to, from even magazine subscriptions. That was a client brought that up. I didn't know people still did that. Like, I can't get magazines to stop sending me their stuff. But I think a more modern example would be like streaming services. Like, how do you make sure that Hulu and YouTube are cut off? There's also the getting access to social media, and some of them have started allowing you to do like legacy contacts and all that sort of stuff. But it's important to stay on top of that stuff. And even on smartphones, at least the iPhone, they have the medical ID, where if your phone is locked, they can still access people that you've put in there. So I really do think people need to be thinking about these things. And as much as I think about it and we try and advise on it, I know that there's, I don't have it all put together the way that I would like, but at least it's a start to put those things together. I mean, we've had people, I remember one lady who called and her husband had died and he did everything online and she didn't pay the bills. She didn't handle anything. It was all in his name. And she had no idea how to access bank accounts, nothing. And there's no paper at home that can tell her. And it's probably one reason, even though it's contrary to my generation and definitely all your generations of not keeping paper and being more tech and online. But I still like getting paper bank statements just because of this experience that we've had with people. At least there's something to physically look at in the case of an emergency and someone's locked out and can't get into anything. But it happens so often. So often.
I will say that one thing about the now, like formerly Will Memorandum, now what do we call it? Oh my God, I really just blanked. Organizer. That was the word I just blanked on. I will say one thing that's special about ours is that Lorie has taken pieces that she's learned throughout actually doing probate, and it's the actual things your family's going to need, and they're all in one place. And I feel that that's a thing that a lot of people don't know, some of the really basic things that they're going to ask for in certain probate proceedings, whether it be like your the decedent's parents' names or where they were born. Sometimes, like, you do need some of those things, and just no one knows them. So I think that is one really important thing about our CYA organizer, and how there are a lot of pieces that will just make life so much easier for whoever is taking care of things once you pass.
Yeah,
That's
and
why
there
we're
are
superior.
it's one of the reasons why we're
It's one
superior.
of them.
Well, and there's a lot of online sites, and we've looked at them, where you can you can upload your social security card and your driver's license, your insurance, and all of that. And here's my biggest concern there is I have a membership to one because I wanted to, and it's a really cool one. And we even talked to them about being able to provide it to clients and everything. I still haven't even scratched the surface of all of that. And if I'm not using it and putting all that information there, it makes me really concerned that any of our clients would, because I'm pretty on top of that stuff. And, how, busy lives, how do you get around to it? I mean, some of the ways I've been able to get done, at least the things that I've had, is I schedule it. I just set time aside and say, this is going to stink, but this weekend on Saturday for 2 hours, I'm going to do this one particular. I'm going to get all my passwords together and put those in one place. I've already done this, but I'm giving an example because I know most people don't, you know. And then the way that I've done it is I actually have the memorandum CYA organizer printed, but on the top it says for the most recent version, here's where you can find it on the computer, so that there is a printed version, but you know how you have to update passwords and stuff. So I've just programmed myself that every time, and it's, even though it's always a good rule of thumb to update your password, I just have to be very transparent and tell you the only time I do it is when I'm made to do it. So I'll always think, okay, I've got to go to my CY organizer, the Word document, and update it there, but I don't always reprint it and all of that jazz. So as long as it's like referenced there and all of those pieces. But anyway, I think it's critical to have those emergency things together, and it's not just thinking about having the plan, but also the roadmap to be able to start and figure these things out. Because when any of this stuff is going on, it's not when people are at their best or most rational or anything like that. It's very heightened emotions, and it's something that people need to be on top of. Don't you agree, friends?
Yes.
I do agree. I
Excellent.
realize I should do this. I have
Oh,
not done it.
should you?
I
So
should.
for those of you at
Sure.
home, it took months of me badgering Sarah to actually get her estate plan done. So
With
who
automated
wants?
kids.
Can we make some like hypotheses here about how long it's going to take for me to badger her to get this done?
7 months.
7 months?
Okay.
I think
Yeah, I'm being
you're.
nice.
Well, I'm
Was
gonna get
it?
it done tomorrow.
Oh,
Okay.
booyah. No,
Really?
you're gonna work tomorrow.
You're going to work tomorrow. That's what I was going to say. When are you going to have
You
time?
can do it during your lunch break
Yeah.
or
For
after work.
But during
Or
her lunch break, she has to do her little phone games.
that takes like
Didn't
5 minutes.
didn't you, Sarah? Didn't you, Cynthia? Did you not have something on your phone like an automated
Yeah.
reminder or automated text?
Yeah, so, like,
Yeah.
if you have,
Yeah.
an iPhone, you have this, app on here, it's called Shortcuts, and you can essentially program text messages to go out, on certain dates, times, you can have it trigger under certain conditions, so I would queue some up and make them as obnoxious as possible and have them send for the most obnoxious times possible.
Mhm.
It was great. It was really
So
a nice creative outlet.
actually, so what Cynthia is also demonstrating is the power of having an accountability partner. And that's
True.
actually one of the main points of the CYA plan, because all the things that we put in there, as far as this is how you need to update your bank accounts, and this is how you need to change your beneficiaries, and this is what you need to tell your financial planner, and this is how you need to direct your family, and this is how you need to put together the CYA organizer. We give everybody those instructions. There's not a single aspect of the CYA plan that we haven't told you how to do. but we know people still aren't going to do it. So that's one of the points of why we offer this plan is we're your accountability partners. We're going to nag you to death to do those things. Well, hopefully not to death. At least not
hopefully
in a
before then.
Yes, hopefully before that happens. But that's a great illustration of that. So speaking of emergency preparedness, I know that Sam and Sara always like to think outside the box. Sometimes they're nowhere near the box about preparing for emergencies. So did you all have some other thoughts about ways that people should be prepared for an emergency?
Did we? Yes. So.
And those
would be rapid fire. Texas hot and you're on the verge of dehydration, just drink water.
There's a hurricane, just swim.
Tornado, run.
Flooding, just don't drown.
Tsunami, good luck.
Fire, just don't breathe.
Earthquake, just don't move.
Sinkhole, just don't go in.
Quicksand, tell it to slow down.
Avalanche, tell it no.
I really need to hold on. Our listeners need to know that Sam's parents are first responders. They are emergency first responders, and this is what she comes up with. Yeah, Paul, I love you, Tony, but still.
That's the best you've got? Are you kidding me right now?
That's why we provided the second option, just in case.
Okay, but I just had
the second option. Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
It's not bitter.
It's yes. Not to completely derail the derailment, but it did make me think because I'm thinking how ridiculous all of this is. What would not be ridiculous? So something that we have in our home is we have 3 different fire blankets with fireproof gloves. So like if you have a grease fire or something like that, you can just throw the blanket over it.
Those are super cool.
Yeah. I have one.
Do you?
What?
Whoa.
Yeah.
But you don't have a letter in case you have a fire?
No.
You do live on the top story, don't you?
I know. I think about it often, how I need to get a ladder.
I also don't have a ladder and I'm on the 3rd floor. So.
Well, hold on. Sam, yours is a little different. You have an open, okay, yours is different. You're good.
Oh, okay.
I don't really think you're going to need to escape through your balcony whenever the door is open to the outdoors right there.
Yeah, and I can always jump to the scary tree that sways if I have to. It's like right there.
Just cling on.
Yeah. I get a call, hey, she's in a tree. I'm like, okay, I'll be right there.
I'm like a cat. I'm just stuck there.
Okay, so you had something else to offer?
It's not very good. We didn't have a good time today thinking.
Yeah, my brain is complete mush, so this is the best we could do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have an emergency kit necessities. So you need stuff like food.
Right.
Yeah. You need food, you need water, the basics.
Okay, thank you. Your child or children, that's always good to have with you.
Fire ladder, which I do not have, but it is on my list.
Yeah. A lantern, which Sara personally purchased. Was it last year? I think you got it.
No, it was this year. I purchased it for the winter storm. I got a lantern.
Like she's a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one, I don't even want to say it because it's embarrassing, but a George Foreman grill.
You're the one that put it.
You can add the propane piece to make it less embarrassing. Yeah. Edit that.
Yeah.
Do not edit that.
I'm just waiting for the day that she actually does.
That was it.
Sarah's going to have a lot of work editing this one because I don't think the audio quality is super great.
Yeah.
I think there's some going in and out. George Foreman grill. Why? So you say you're embarrassed, and yet here it is. So I don't think you are embarrassed.
Just
what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if you add the propane, it's not embarrassing, but without it, it's just electric. And in an emergency, it's useless. So,
well, if you're like having to fend off an attacker, you could like throw it.
Yeah, you could just
true.
throw
So it's a
it.
weapon.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're really
It's a weapon.
broadening the definition of emergency here. Okay.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
trying to help.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, that's really great. Have any of you ever had to escape an emergency?
No.
I'm knocking on wood as we speak. No.
I do think that during high school, there was a time there was a legitimate fire. It wasn't a drill, and we did have to stay outside for quite a while. But I mean, it wasn't a big deal. Ooh, back during the big snowmageddon that hit Texas,
Oh yeah, true.
we did kind of have a legitimate emergency, but it was flooding in the building. However, we were on the top floor, so it didn't really affect us. But it was still a matter of having to gather all of our pets and get them to a safe location, which was the car. That was a whole ordeal.
My bathroom flooded, so that was fun during that. Yeah, how fun.
I will say, so
well, when we've been
I was out of town over the weekend for a wedding, and I got an alert Sunday morning as we were driving back that our power was out. The first thing I thought of, oh no, my cats. They're home. And so that was one piece. And also I was like, great, we have to go pick up our dog today. Luckily, we boarded him somewhere where we know the people really well, so I could just text them and be like, hey, can you keep him another night? We don't have power, and little things like that. I feel like so many times we make plans for things that are like our pets and not so much for the real inevitable things. Just kind of a really big food for thought there.
Are you trying to be deep?
No,
It was
not really
deep.
trying. I'm
She
just saying,
started it.
like, so many people don't really. No, just people don't think about, oh, hey, I really should do this. However, something happened to my couch. I definitely need to get that fixed, like ASAP, get somebody in. It's like, how about you focus on the things that are a little bit, matter more?
So my deep thought, and now since Cyntia started one, that means Sara and Sam are going to have to each have one to close us out.
Does
But
it?
my deep thought, well, yes, it does now because I said so, is in an emergency, I think one of the most important things not to do is to hesitate.
Oh yeah.
Like you gotta just make a decision and go with it. Because the more you're hemming and hawing, the more you are in the details, you're not going to make the decision. So collect your thoughts as quickly as possible, make the best decision you can make in that moment and go with it. Because if you're just hesitating, you're going to, sink in the sinkhole, right?
Just don't go in.
Just don't go in.
Right.
Yeah, just don't go in the sinkhole.
So
that means you have had to have planned beforehand.
The two of you owe us a deep thought. So Sam, your deep thought when it comes to emergency preparedness.
I don't know if it counts as a deep thought, but even though like we were joking,
It's not, and I assure you. But try.
I think actually like having an emergency kit is something that you should have, like obviously for emergencies. So like canned food and water and food for your pet and like stuff like that. Like, yeah.
That's good. That's actually good.
Okay. Good luck,
Sara. What do you got?
Good luck, Sara.
So I'm thinking more of along the lines of just always kind of being prepared for the unexpected, not in a threatening way. It's just like, like I personally am always kind of like on the lookout for like I'm always aware of my surroundings. I'm always aware, like stuff like that. So I'm prepared for like anything.
Except for this question.
Hey, Sara, do you remember
it's
that one
better
time?
in my head.
You better not
edit
edit
yourself
that out.
At work. We talk to you and you just don't hear us.
Hey, Sara, do you by any chance remember the one time that somebody hid under your desk And you really you had no clue.
That's because I'm at work and I'm not expecting threats at work.
Oh,
Is
we're
it
in
because
safe
I have to
space,
deal with
remember?
them? That's the thing. It's because whenever you're there, you're expecting me or Lorie to deal with it, huh?
Right. But when I'm out in the open environment, always be expected.
Expect
Or
the
always be
unexpected,
prepared. Yeah.
as Big Brother would say.
And walk in a zigzag.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Serpentine.
And
Street
on
smarts.
that, we're going to wrap this up. So thank you for joining us. Join us next time for a very interesting discussion. I'm beginning to think that the one of us that knows what they're talking about, the other one is you, are the people I'm actually talking to on this podcast.
That is.
I thought that was obvious.
Yeah.
Is it obvious?
Hey, I know some
Cyntia,
things.
you know you're excluded from that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, as my 5-year-old says, I know 1% things.
Yeah.
But that 1% is very broad. But anyway, join us next time for another episode of One of Us Knows What They're Talking About, and the other one is Sara or Sam. Until then.